Hello, 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 everyone. It is time for another episode of Hungry. I'm your host, Aaron Allegory. This is the podcast for creatives on the come up, by creatives on the come up, and I'm happy to introduce to you today the host of the Big Step Up podcast, Dove.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Dove, on Dove, however you want to call it. Yep.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
I appreciate it, man. Definitely appreciate it. It's easy for me to say yes when she came up to me.
I feel like
Networking.
that's the good thing about this
Yeah.
space is like it's very easy. Like opportunities happen all the time.
Yeah, I've been meeting people all the time since I've been coming here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's honestly nice because this is the first time that I'm being the host for another host of a podcast.
Oh, that's dope.
You know,
I've done it a couple times now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm learning. This has been our first season, and it's
Oh, first
honestly
season.
it's been a growing experience. It's been super fun.
Definitely that first season is always that growing experience. You know, you learn what you want to do, what you don't want to do. You make some mistakes along the way, clean them up later down the line. Then when season 2 comes, pretty much more laxed.
Yeah,
Yeah, you get some more content in. That's how it worked for me, at least.
or at least now I feel like I'm stepping into like my phrases. Like
Mhm.
I'm feeling out my phrases that I say every single podcast.
Getting your niche.
Yeah. So since you've been doing podcasting for a couple years now, what is a struggle that you have faced on your creative journey, and how did you overcome it?
Pretty much getting the audience correct, like the right audience. So naturally, you figure, people your age are going to listen to you.
Mm-hmm.
So you try to make content for that age group, but kind of, sort of, you can go lower and you can go higher. So. You'd be surprised how many 40-year-olds might listen, 45-year-olds, or lower 20s. So I'm 29, so most of my friends are around the 30 range. So
Okay.
I try not to cater too much to that one specific age group, but at the same time, it's been a journey, finding the right audience. I think at this point right now we have a broad audience probably from 20 to 40. That's probably our main audience
Okay.
right now. So it's working for us.
That's my main audience.
Yeah.
Just from looking at the analytics,
Yeah.
of the people that follow me, the majority of my followers are personally not of Hungry the podcast, but of me personally.
Mm-hmm.
Of my poetry is women that are 24 to 34,
Okay.
and then the second.
Sound about right.
yeah. I mean, it's poetry, so like that comes with it, and I love that. I love having like knowing your audience and getting kind of in tune with your audience. This is gonna have I can already tell this is gonna have a very broad audience because we be getting into creative talk, so it could apply to creatives, but we also get into very like just like low key spiritual topics because it's all about that human.
Oh, that's dope too. Yeah.
That human perseverance,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah. I mean, with everything. Yeah.
So, what is some advice that you would give to your younger self?
My younger self.
How old is he right now when you're in your head?
I'm going back to about 21.
Okay.
21. At that point, you can do more. You pretty much legal. Like 18, you legal, but 21, you really are.
Yeah.
So at 21, I would say do for self. At that point in my life, I was doing a lot for other people that the typical 21-year-old shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
Family mainly. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, doing a lot of stuff for family and stuff like that, not putting myself first. So I kind of bloomed late on certain stuff. Like with podcasts, for sure, I could have been doing this earlier,
Mm-hmm.
but I put it to the side because I had other things that I had to take care of, financially. So I couldn't really take on that type of burden. So
I feel you 100%.
yeah,
People have been telling me to host a podcast for years.
yeah,
For years, bro. Especially because, like, in my apartment, I guess it's become an iconic room in my friend group.
Right.
I have I call it the smoke room, which is like my weed room. It's got
Oh, shit.
it's got the posters, it's got the
Yeah.
lights, it's got speakers set up, it's got good acoustics, and everyone loves it. And like now that there's so many more podcasts, like Mike Tyson has a podcast, Smoking with Mike
I
Tyson.
love his podcast.
All right, and it's a good podcast. But they were like, bro, like you should have that. Like the conversations we have in this room are so deep. Like you could easily host a podcast. You should do it. And then, sure enough, I just kept taking steps
Yeah.
towards being my best self, and I fell into the position. It literally was offered to me, just of sheer of people noticing.
Right.
So I feel like that is
Dope.
I feel that.
Yeah. A lot of people get started the same way. Like mine was pretty much the same kind of journey. Like it was built up. I wanted to do a podcast for years, like you said. Finally, I found a partner and we kind of, connected on it, and I was able to start at least. and then we got it going. But it took me a while, bro. It took me a long while.
How important is finding those partners, those people?
Yeah.
Because I feel like it really is.
Yeah, it's funny. I just was talking about this. I recorded on Thursday. I was talking to this about somebody because at first, initially, I wanted to do it alone, but I was scared. I was afraid, like, I can't do this shit by myself. So I ran into different people, like even personal people that I know personally. We would, have run-ins. Like, we're going to do the podcast, but it always would, not happen.
Yeah.
So eventually, my partner, Jada Bull, shout out to him. Me and he went to CCP together in like 2012.
Okay.
So this is 2020, the end of 2020. I'm talking now when we connected. We always like kept, how Facebook keeps people connected and stuff like that. So we always, had each other's number and we always had each other's Facebook. So we would, go back and forth sometimes. It just happens to be one of those days where I was bored and I'm just like, yo, why ain't doing a podcast? So I tweeted it out, did a Facebook status, and he wrote back. He DM'd me, matter of fact. He sent me a keyboard. It was like, yo, I want to do a podcast too. So it pretty much went from there. But the importance of it is the person that you do it with, y'all just have to be on the same page. Y'all have to want the same thing, because if y'all don't, then at some point, shit can go south. And I've seen it so many times, with like rich people, not rich people, famous people, I would say, going doing stuff like that, and then they end up breaking up because people just simply not on the same page. I think that's the most important when you finding your partner or whoever you want to do the podcast with.
Yeah, that's why I feel like it's like important to actually put like details in your discussion and talk about what it actually is going to look like realistically, and not be super vague.
Yeah,
because like ideas sound romantic or good when it's just a small little idea, but then when it actually comes down to doing it and there's actual like moving pieces and elements that you have to do, it gets a little bit tricky. And then it can be like, who's going to do what? Is this partnership 50-50? Does it feel 50-50?
That's important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why I'm honestly like, I'm not the owner of Hungry.
Okay.
But I'm grateful for the guy that is like the head of all this. Like, so shout out to Soup the Radio Kid. Like, he's got the energy of like, I'm going to do it and I'm going to get it done. And he's got this, he's very good at networking and bringing people in together and putting them in position.
That's what I aspire to be.
Yeah. So
That's
I'm
dope.
very glad that I met him.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to say that. Shout out to him. Shout out to him. But our next segment, I have to give you our signature question on the silver platter, which is, what is the worst struggle meal that you've ever had, or what is the grossest thing you've ever eaten?
My worst struggle meal. Syrup sandwiches.
Syrup sandwiches?
Yeah.
So like maple syrup on bread?
Yeah. 2 pieces of white. It was white bread too. Syrup sandwiches. I can vividly remember eating those. I wasn't supposed to. My mom, it's too much sugar. But yeah, syrup sandwiches probably was my worst struggle meal. You said, what's the second one?
Or what is the grossest thing you've ever eaten?
The grossest? I'm very picky, so I don't know. I don't really try too much. Offhand, based off of what I don't eat, probably frog legs. Probably the craziest, grossest thing I would just naturally thinking out here. Frog legs. Like when you grew up, you wouldn't eat no frog. You wouldn't think about eating no frog one day.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's probably it.
Okay. That's honestly, syrup sandwich is an interesting one. It's an interesting one.
Yeah, I figured.
Some people are like, well, on a different episode, someone referenced they had Rice Krispies with orange juice. That was a weird one to me.
Did they dip it?
Now, like they poured it like Rice Krispie treat.
Oh,
like the cereal.
the cereal.
The cereal with orange juice.
That's wild,
right? Like I could see water. That makes more sense. But like, he was also young when he did it. So
Yeah.
I get it. When you're young,
experimental.
You're young, you put anything in your
Curious.
mouth. Like,
Yeah.
ridiculous. This was fun. I do kind of want to still pick your brain a little bit, to be honest. Like, so you've been doing this podcast for 2 years now?
Yeah, it'll be 2 years. Our official 2-year anniversary for episode 1 will be April 12th, 13th.
Yeah. What was the biggest hurdle? Literally just getting started.
Yeah, because at the time when we were getting started, I had went through like a breakup, so I had like relocate, and that was like right around the time when we was really about to first start. So kind of got pushed back, but we just had to work a little harder, find a good home. We started off one place and we ended up somewhere else eternally. Now we here, we just started here in January, but to start, we started off at one studio, and then we moved it, and then this is probably our home for I don't know how long, but I'm digging this spot for now.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, thank you for being on the podcast.
No problem. No problem at all. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah. All right, everyone. This has been an episode of Hungry, the podcast for creatives on the come up, by creatives on the come up. We hope that you take a lesson from this and can apply it to your life. And most importantly, I hope that you have a great day. Peace out, everyone.